good evening and welcome to everyone. We are now live on Facebook also, and welcome to the Earth Day edition of the Sprouts lecture series. We've been running this lecture series for almost about 8 to 9 years. It started off earlier at the Maharashtra Nature Park in Dharavi, which was a garbage dump which was converted into a nature park and I was a volunteer there 25 years ago. Actually, I'm very, very happy to say that my first camp when I was in my 10th standard in Pune was where I met Ganesh Pangare, and we used to share a plate and eat food in the same plate at the campsite over there. And I think me being in this field of nature and conservation has a lot to do with Ganesh sir, I should say. So I'm very, very grateful for him to have, shared a lot more than, his passion for nature and wildlife with me. And I think, one always needs these kinds of role models. The youth need role models who will lead the way with their example. So I've been following his career path and seeing what he's been doing for so many years. So, he's been the regional director of Asia Pacific for various organizations. Some of them are like the International Association for Water. Then he's worked with the World Bank. Then he's worked with the IUCN and DFID in the UK. So his work has spanned a huge diversity of activities, from policy to working with communities, doing hardcore research and documentation of. So some of his books, I think, with Intact, right, which you and Vasudha have written, are really path-breaking, and you must look up his CV, Google him up, and look up all the publications, the series of publications that they have given. And more so that as a training, in his technical training, he's a hydroecologist. One of the really rare kind of people. We were working on some wetland documentation in Thane district. And we realized that there is no person who is available who understands the hydrology and who understands the geology. Because when you're talking, if you look at rivers or streams and water bodies, just as carriers of floodwaters, that's not what its function. It's also a living biodiversity space. It's a geological formation. And he has a management degree also. So that is another thing that people need to understand, that while you do a technical academic study like a wildlife biology or a hydrogeology, you also sometimes need to do business studies. You also sometimes need to have professional understanding of how fundraising or writing grants proposals, etc., can be done. And he's an Ashoka fellow. He's a lead fellow, and he's been an invited research fellow at the East West Center in Hawaii. So besides that, extensive publications in peer-reviewed journals, popular articles, and then he works on the grassroots also. While doing all the large umbrella work that he does, he also works on the grassroots with communities. So today's talk is going to be much more of a wow experience for a lot of us. I myself am looking forward to it, because he's going to talk about wildlife of Antarctica. Usually when people start talking about Antarctica, it becomes far more grim and gray and cold, that climate change and whatever. Today is going to take us to this amazing landscape that is there. Some of you might have played the quiz that Amruta had put up about this frozen landscape and the sort of mysteries that place has. So a lot of those mysteries will get unraveled over here today. I'm hoping so. So welcome, Ganesh, and thank you for accepting our invitation for speaking at this lecture conference. We've had a very large diversity and very wide spectrum of people who've spoken here, right from novelists, from numismatologists, and like recently we had a person who is specializing in mythology. So we've looked at environment and nature from various perspectives, and soon we might have an artist talk about nature and art. But it's a great pleasure to have a technically qualified person to talk about a very, very endangered landscape, if I may say so, and what are the changes and what are the things. So I think the question answer session would definitely be very, very engaging. So I think let's start. Ganesh, Jyoti, can you please allow him to share his screen?
He can.
Yeah. And a quick note to all the audience members that please type in your questions. We will be taking the questions at the end of the session to not break the flow of the speaker. We just generally don't put the questions in between. But if I feel as a moderator that there is something which needs to be handled at this point, then I will definitely, Ganesh, please pardon me if I interject in between. But otherwise, we'll be mute. Don't worry.
Yeah, thanks, Anand, for your very kind introduction. I'm not going to take too much time in getting into other things, but one thing I would like to mention that he said, sir, and all that, nothing of that. I and Anand are actually of the same age nearly. But yes, Anand, very fondly remember him and his sister because, that's the time we all started our, love and wildlife. We were just in our 17, 18 years old we were when we met and started our journeys together. Number one. Number two is whatever he said, journals, qualification, academics, none of that really is what I feel is important in life. What's really important is that one has to follow your passions, and that's what I think Anand and I did. And we didn't know what money we'll get in life, where we will go. And I always, at this age with a few gray hair now, I can always philosophize. I always tell friends that it's follow your heart, actually, number one. And number two is that my grandfather never left his village. My father had never left the country, and today, my son has traveled more than 50 countries. And I won't brag about how many I did, but at least I've been around to 7 continents. That's the thing. And as I said, coming from a background where my grandfather never left his village, I think if you follow your passion, I think that's number one. Life has really been good, and with my wife, we have done the world, and she's been a constant companion for the last 40 years with me nearly. So I think what I'm going to do today is why Antarctica, number one, and number two is Anand. Some 2 months back, we got in touch and he said, "Can you talk?" I said, "Yes, for you, anything." And then we were just going through various topics, what he wanted. And I had not yet told him that I had been to Antarctica and blah, blah. So when I said that, he said, "Why are we discussing the Brahmaputra? Why are we discussing this and that? I want you to, and why are we, I want you to talk on Antarctica." So as he said, my whole livelihood, actually, what I do work is I'm a water resources professional. So that's really my bread and butter, but always with a camera and always a wildlifer at heart. So that's where, and therefore Antarctica was something which my friend also is in the audience, Sangeeta, we in college and some other friends, we had seen India send its first Antarctica mission was in 81, and we went college 82, 83, and that's when we met the leader of the second expedition. And from there, it's been in one's mind, one had to go. And finally, a year and a half back, I did manage to go with my wife, Vasu, and we did. And that's where it is. So what I'm going to share you is just a personal journey to the Antarctica. But of course, then with some of the facts, and as Anand said about wildlife, how do you go there, what's there, things like that. And then obviously we can have some questions and I'll try to answer them to the best of my capabilities. So let's start then. For many of you, again, world map, where is Antarctica? Actually, you can go to Antarctica from anywhere. If you take a boat from Australia, from South Africa, from India, from, go to Kanyakumari and take a boat, you will reach Antarctica. It's like that. So it's at the, so the map is in front of you. It's at the bottommost, if the globe and the saucer below, that's the whole Antarctica continent. The size is as big as India, China put together. Those statistics you can Google and see. But just a quick map for you in front as to where India and then how Antarctica is. And as I said, you can go from anywhere. You will reach Antarctica. If you sit on a small boat and go, you will surely reach Antarctica. From India, from Africa, South Africa, anywhere, Australia. For some of you, then how is Antarctica governed? Antarctica is not owned by anyone. It's the 7th continent, as we all know. But in 1954, a treaty was done, which was called the Antarctica Treaty, by which, because countries had started, USA wanted to claim the whole of, after the Second World War, they said Antarctica is ours. Somebody else said Antarctica is ours. So in 1954, there were 12 countries which were going for expeditions there and had a base. But 1954, they said, no, whoever can establish a base on Antarctica can be a part of this treaty. And this Antarctica Treaty now governs how the future of Antarctica and how it will be preserved for humanity and we can go into details and question what are the issues of the treaty, what do they say, like no nuclear arms, no arms, now no fishing, no killing, no, you can't. And the permanent base also that you have on Antarctica, it should be such a base that it can be all picked up and dismantled and taken home. So, there are certain rules in the way Antarctica has to be governed. What is important for this group to know that there is something called the Antarctica Treaty 1954, and today about 54 countries are part of the treaty. Again, most people are Indians in the listening. On the top here, this is where our Maitri, Dakshin Gangotri, permanent bases of India are. There are 3 bases that India has on the Antarctica. If you look on the left, that's Ushuaia. This is from where most people who want to go to Antarctica go from. It's also the closest point to the continent. And down on the right south is Australia, New Zealand, and somewhere on the right hand top corner is where South Africa would be. Again, just a quick facts from Mumbai to Addis Ababa. How much time it takes if you had to fly from Bombay to reach the port of Ushuaia? It's 5.5 hours to Addis, then from Addis to Buenos Aires, from Buenos Aires, which is Argentina's capital, further to Ushuaia, which is the southernmost tip of the earth, is 5 hours, and therefore it's about 28 hours of only flying time, and forget the time that is in between that one has to spend reaching there. So it's far away from India in that sense. This is a view of the town of Ushuaia from the plane as we were landing. It's a beautiful small town at the tip of Argentina. It's interesting again for Indians to, the British sent our prisoners to Andaman Islands. So same way in Argentina, they would send all their prisoners to this town of Ushuaia, because once the prisoners were sent there, they could go nowhere, because south was all the way down was Antarctica and then the mountains, and therefore that was like an open prison for Argentina for more than 100 years. Again, just it's 16,000 plus kilometers from Delhi, but this is as the crow flies. And okay, coming now to, as I said, to go to Antarctica, basically you have to now go through, and there'll be many questions. How do you go there? What are the costs? But there are now expeditions that travel companies, and there are some scientific institutions which do expeditions. For example, National Geographic also does expeditions, which you can go, if you have the money, you can go with them. And the interesting thing that we went, why did we suddenly do a year before last, was because of this ship that you see in the picture. This is Polar Pioneer. This ship was going to do its last journey in 2019. And we had read a lot about it. We knew about this ship, and 2-3 years we kept thinking, when will we go? And when we realized that it was the last voyage of this ship, that made our mind in 1 minute, and we went. The interesting history of this ship is that it was a ship of USSR before Russia. It was a spy ship by the Russians during the Cold War. And there were 6 of these which were in the Antarctica waters, and 6 of these were in the Arctic waters as spy ships of Russia. After the Cold War was over, this ship, and then the breakdown of USSR, etc., this was then given, this was taken over by a private company, and then to help the bases that were set up in the Antarctica, to give them supplies. And one expedition group was then using it also for expeditions to Antarctica. So that's quickly the background of this ship. And let's start our journey to Antarctica. This was going to be our small cabin on the boat for the next 3 weeks. We were on this ship for 21 days plus. The journey starts from Ushuaia, as I said. Antarctica is still about 1,200 kilometers, the continent. The coast is 1,200 kilometers from Ushuaia. And you have to, as you start going, you go to the Beagle Channel. It looks all nice and sunny and beautiful, calm waters. But then most of you must have heard about the infamous Drake Passage. This is the part of the passage which is about 1,000 kilometers. You have to cross through it. And it lived up to its expectations. Okay, before I go there, let me also tell you what we did in the 21 days quickly. So this is Ushuaia, as I said, the tip of Argentina. If you can see the cursor, on the up is Punta Arenas. Punta Arenas is in Chile. So you can, their boats can also go from there, and boats also go from Ushuaia. But most of the boats go from Ushuaia. That is the tip of Argentina. From our trip was from Ushuaia to this part, to the continent, and I'll come back to what's the polar circle, and then from there we went to South Georgia, because this is for all nature lovers in the world. It's a dream, actually, more than Antarctica, is to go to South Georgia, which is this small island of South Georgia here. And the reason again being, which I'll come back to, why there is so many, why do the whales, why do all the life and is teeming there is because of a crustacean called the krill, and I'll come back to it, which is the main food for the whole ecosystem that lives in this region. And because of the currents of the ocean, South Georgia and the South Shetland, all this region is where all this krill accumulates, and it's really a rich food area basis, and therefore most of the birds which nest, the seals, the whales, all of them anywhere around the world come back to this part is only to eat, and therefore South Georgia is a mecca for any nature lover in the world. If you want, and it's a very the controls, there are many which I will tell you later on about biohazards and other things. And from there we went up to the Falkland Island. That's where we ended. So the 3 weeks were from Ushuaia to the Antarctica continent, then to South Georgia, and to Falkland. So therefore, some of the animals and birds, wildlife I'll be showing you is a mix between what is found on the main continent of Antarctica and South Georgia, which is actually called the Antarctica Peninsula. Therefore, if you see any picture where there is grass, that means it is not on the continent, but it is South Georgia, just to quickly in your mind. Otherwise, you may see some pictures which have a bit of greenery, because on Antarctica, there's no grass, so there's nothing. And this, another point quickly to understand, is what's called the polar circle. The polar circle is 66 degrees latitude. Okay. And inside that, once you go, that's what's called the Antarctica continent. And outside the polar circle is the Antarctica Peninsula. And of course, the South Pole in there. And from the continent to the South Pole, once you reach the continent to South Pole, is about between 1,000 to 1,400 kilometers, depending on which part of the Antarctica you land. So I was coming now back that the infamous Drake's Passage, which is known for its rolling seas, and it really, as I said, it was infamous. It was one of our worst journeys ever in life, because you never are prepared for this. Especially Indians, we hardly go on boats, and not like this, where it is both rolling and pitching. And as I said, it's 1,000 kilometers. It usually takes about a day plus, day and a half, but it took us more than 2 because of the weather. It was one of the worst weathers at the worst times, for the Drake Passage. And this ship, as I said, the crew is Russian, who have been doing, some of them are there on the ship 10, 15 years. They've been working in the Antarctica. Even all of them were flat. So it was not that, so I didn't feel bad that I was flat and puking all the time, but even the Russian crew on this voyage was also down and puking and, quite flat. Slowly, once you get out of this 1,000 kilometers, 2 days have passed, you get out of the Drake Passage, and then this is what starts. You enter the Antarctica Peninsula, and this is the first site that starts welcoming you. The first ice float and the penguins we saw. And I'll come back to the penguins. What are they? This was, really a great sight after 2 days of puking and, completely head rolling, to be then greeted by the Gentoo penguins as we start inching towards the continent. This is our first landing that we did. And again, this is something interesting to tell you all, is that there are hills, very high hills, and all obviously covered with snow. But this is what interestingly is called the Penguin Highway. So the penguins that they live, they use these highways actually to go up and down to their nest to walk. And quite interesting to see them, hundreds of them walking down these highways very systematically in order, not like something you will see at Chopati or some other place. this is as we start going towards the main continent. This is you start coming to large colonies of penguins, and I will come back to what each penguin is and what is their little bit their natural history. These are Gentoo penguins. This is the sights that you get as we start closing to the continent, and the month was January. So this is by then many of these penguins have their babies are out, the chicks are out, and I'll come back later. But usually the Gentoo, the Adelie penguins, they by when the Antarctica summer starts at around October, November, that's when they come and they lay eggs, and by the time it's Jan, the chicks are out, and they're all interestingly nesting. And then someone will ask, what is the pink color? I will tell you later. So as we are going down and reaching the continent, you will also wonder that how do you then go to landing? This is a picture from a ladder which comes down when you have to get into what's then called zodiacs. And you get down the ladder, you get into the zodiacs, and then you go for the landing. But interestingly, it all looks nice, clean sometimes, but this was the most difficult part every day, that when we had to get on to the zodiac and to go on to land, because this ladder where this guy is standing, this is Igor, he was the strongest man, only he would be at the ladder, because many times getting off the zodiac, people would, because of the bouncy wave, he would be holding you with his arm and you would be in the water and coming up. This ladder, we have seen him many times go into the water only his head up. So you can imagine the waves that are happening, and in that kind of a condition, you're trying to get on to these zodiacs to go on. So this was really the
Ganesh, one of the students is asking which was the bird between the penguins earlier.
I'll come to it. All close-up views will come. So okay. Yeah, so okay, good point, guys. What I've done is that you can go do a talk in many ways. What I'm doing is I'm quickly taking you to the continent, and then I'll shift my gear to only the wildlife. So, but these are interesting things to tell you, because that's a ship behind and on the zodiac, and sometimes because the waves and the weather can be so bad that sometimes you'll be 1 hour just sitting on the zodiac to get back onto the boat. And this is so to let you know. And this ship again is a very small ship. It only 40 expeditioners were there. Today, sometimes their cruises go with 300 to 500 also people. You can go down, but then you can't really get down many times. You can't go to the landings, or the small ships can't go into the fjords and internal parts. So this is one of the smallest expedition ships which was sailing in the Antarctica. So it's a really, really small ship. And you can see the weather. So we were once waiting for 3 to 4 hours like this in the snow, in the zodiac, before we could really go back onto the mothership. Again, a quick glimpse of the kind of waves, and when you were saying these are also 2-meter waves. Actually, you don't realize it. And in this kind of a weather, the only way sometimes what had to happen is that the big ship had to go onto the other side, and we had to follow it so that then we could get on to the ship. This picture I'm just trying to show you is the guy in the middle. It's more for that. His name is Howard, and he was the leader of the expedition. And what's interesting about Howard too, some of you may have seen the movie called Happy Feet, which won the Oscar also for the on the penguins, emperor penguins. So Howard, who was our team leader, was the research director for the movie Happy Feet. So it was very interesting, and he gave us told us a lot of stories of how the movie was made, because though it was an animated film, the director wanted to know exactly the behavior of the penguins, the lighting, and the other things that go on into movie making. And slowly the penguins were welcoming us to the main continent. We were still it was sailing. So between Ushuaia and reaching the main continent, now 5 days have passed. And this is how now the ice pack starts to, you can see the ice pack as you start nearing the main continent, the coast of the main continent of Antarctica. And I'll just run through quickly some of these pictures. So these are what you encounter. It's really, you cannot actually describe Antarctica. So if I'm not trying to tell you something, so instead of me talking, just look at the pictures. And you can look at the pack ice. This is the time actually when, and this is from the stern of the ship with what the captain can see. And this is one day when the captain also was a little worried, because if the weather was, we didn't have really a great weather. It's supposed to be summer, peak summer, but you can see it's snowing, the weather is hardly any sun. And the captain was worried is because if there was more snowfall, the compaction happens, then we could be stuck for a day or two. And of course, what I have to tell you about the ship is that this is a second-class icebreaker ship, so it can still go through. A lot of the explorers of Antarctica 100 years back, they would be stuck for a year, 2 years in the ices because they had wooden ships. Their boats were not icebreakers, and that's why the earlier explorers died, or they were stuck for a year and a half. And I'll tell you some stories later on. But this is what is the view, and as you can see the mountains behind, we are nearing now. This is the continent of Antarctica. This is a ship. You can see how the pack ice is really getting now really thick and surrounding our ship. So this is now we reach the continent of Antarctica, which is the first base that we touched was one of the Argentinian base called the base Brown, 64°53' latitude. And these are the, I can show you 100 pictures like these, but this is the kind of scenery that you really see once you really touch the continent. And it's, what do I say? There's no words can describe this. The blues of the water. Of course, you're not allowed to go through the, we would have thought, let's go through it, through the tunnel, but no, because there can be a chance of collapse. Icebergs, again, I'm jumping a bit in the sense, as we reach, there are what's called the graveyard of icebergs, and this is again what Anand had earlier said, climate change. I'll touch it a bit later, but let's not get into the depressing part. Let's just look at the beauty now. And this, my wife and me getting off on the ice sheet. It's quite interesting, quite great fun. Again, Antarctica, everybody from their school days, kids, we know that there is what's called 6 months day, 6 month night. This is the darkest we got when we were on the continent. This is at 12 o'clock at night. This is how one would see it through in a small cabin, jumping and tossing the sun outside. Okay, guys, so basically what we have done is that we have now reached the continent. I just quickly try to run you through from Ushuaia and the scenery that you see till you reach the continent. Now I'm going to really focus on the wildlife, on the birds, and not the bees, but the seals and whales that are there in Antarctica. Quickly, in the world, there are 18 kinds of penguins. In the Antarctica and the Antarctica Peninsula, we get 8 kinds of seals. And I'm going to actually show you 5 in detail. So the first, which I said when we had the first penguin that had greeted us, so this is the Gentoo penguin. They're also from the family of what's called the brush tail, like a paintbrush. Their tail, if you can see it. So Gentoo. The second is the Gentoo and its baby. Just a quick. Then you have the Adelie. Why is this not? 1 second, guys. Anand, can you see the head? No. Yeah. So this is the Adelie. There are only 2 penguins and 1 bird which actually lives on the Antarctica continent for all the 12 months, and that is the emperor penguin, which is deep in, which we couldn't see because you have to go deep in another 500-600 kilometers in. But the king penguin is what we saw, and I'll show you that. And the emperor penguin is very similar to that, just a little bit more in height and similar markings. The second is the Adelie penguin, which is on your screen now. This is the other, only the other penguin which lives 12 months on the Antarctica continent. And the third is a bird which is the snow petrel, which I'll come to later on. So Adelie, I hope everybody who's listening knows that penguins are birds. Birds which don't fly. This is the Adelie with a chick. Come back. The third penguin is the chin strap penguin. And it's called chin strap because you can see, if you look at it, it's like a helmet on his head with a strap, like a soldier or a German soldier or whatever, in the war soldiers. So it's called the chin strap penguin. The fourth is macaroni, which you see grass. So the macaroni is nesting and they live in the Antarctica Peninsula. So not on the main continent, but as I had said earlier, on the peninsula in South Georgia. They go up to the continent, but their breeding and everything is on the Antarctica Peninsula. The other 3 penguins are nesting on the main continent. This nests a little away, 1,000 kilometers away, which is the South Georgia island. And Macroni, it's interesting, as you can see on his head is these yellow markers. Why Macroni? It must be some Italian researcher or somebody. The 5th, which I'm going to talk today about, is quickly the king penguin. And what it is doing is actually sitting on its egg, and I'll come back to that later. So the 5 penguins is what I'm going to tell you a bit in detail and a bit about their story. So coming back, so the first one, the Gentoo penguin. The Gentoo penguins, as you can see, they nest on stones. They collect stones, and these are the nests they make. So here you can see a Gentoo penguin taking a stone in its beak. What they do is there are 2 things happen. They are each stealing from each other's nest, and we saw this a lot. They steal stones from one nest to the other, and the Gentoo and the Adelie, but more the Adelie penguins, what they do is also during mating, the male will take a stone as a gift to the female to attract her, that I have stones, come and, nest with me. The Gentoo penguins always give 2 eggs, but it's very rare that both the chicks survive. As you can see, even here, there is only 1 chick which was born, 1 egg is gone. And also many, which will come to it, the predators try to eat the chicks. So Gentoo lay 2 eggs, they nest on stones, as you can see. And we were lucky, I will find 1 Gentoo with 2 babies, as you can see, very pretty sight. And this is again lucky to have seen a rare albino. Again, Anand can tell you later on what albinos are. This is 1 in a million penguin, or even more, that turns out albino, that is white. So this is a rare albino Gentoo penguin in South Georgia. We saw it. This we come to the king penguin. This is really amazing. This is South Georgia. So this is not the main continent, but as I said, South Georgia, which is the Antarctica Peninsula, and more than 20 in one place, Salisbury, there are about 100,000 pairs nesting. And the whole story about it is amazing, that they pair for life as much as possible. But like humans, there are some of them also who, stray away or do whatever. I'm not being moralistic about marriages and non-marriages or anything of that kind, but they, by and large, they do pair for life. And it's amazing to tell you here that in this 100,000 penguin also, the male will know the female's voice, the female knows the male, and the babies also know the parent's voice, and the parent know the baby's voice. So it's again fantastic science. There's a lot of research happening, but this is something brilliant. That imagine 100,000 penguins, each of them shouting, but the parent and the kid know each other's, the pups know each other's sounds. A close-up of the king penguin. As I said, this is the female obviously lays the egg, but the male is the first one to keep the egg on his legs. So they incubate the eggs by not sleeping on them or on them, warming them, but they keep the egg on their feet, as you can see, and then as you can see that the stomach part that comes and warms the egg. Fascinating. Once the female lays the egg, the male takes care for the first 1.5 to 2.5 weeks. When the female goes to the sea to eat as much as and come back, it's also known that if the male gets too tired or gets too hungry, they've also known to abandon the eggs. But 98% of the time they wait for the female to come. Once the female comes, the egg is transferred to the female's leg, and then the male leaves to eat, goes for a week, 2 weeks. So up to 2.5 weeks, it's known that one of the pair goes to the sea to eat and come back. And these chicks, like the Gentoo chicks, after 20 days, about 2 months, so 60 days they're on the land, and then they are ready to go off to the sea. In the king penguins, they are on land for nearly up to 13 months. So these chicks that you see in the middle brown, that's their fur, feather fur. So they are growing up, and these are about a year old. And this is what happens, is that the first starts going, and on the penguin on the right is now ready to leave the island and go to the sea. But in the last 3 months, 4 months, they are not fed by the parents. So they are just starving, and they're just waiting then when they can go to sea. So this is, you can see the one on the right could be about 13 to 14 months. On the left, it's still about 10 to 11 to 12 months. A shot of again a king penguin. Again, you can see the colony till the eyes go back. It's a huge penguin colony. And the skua, and I'll come back now to. This is interesting. Why I put this is I thought COVID days there is something called social distancing. There is also a protocol in on Antarctica that how much of a distance you keep from the animals. You can't just go and touch the animal. The protocol is that there has to be a 3-meter distance from any animal that you go closest to. But what happened there, you can see, is that the queen penguin, that is Vasudha, actually was there. You can't do anything, in the sense you are told that if the penguins come close, you have to just stand still. They are also very inquisitive. So here what's happened is that Vasudha was standing, and they just came, whole group of them just came towards her thinking, who's this, alien who has come? So she just waited, and after some time they just walked and went away when they realized that it was not food or it was nothing interesting. It's only interesting for me, but and that's how they just went off. So just 1 minute, guys. Something has happened. 1 minute. Why did? No, wait. Sorry.
So you can type in your questions. I'm sure you are all in awe and enthralled on this trip.
Sorry, guys. There was something in my head. Okay, so
if I can throw in one question, since you were there about talking about Vasudha. So while there is, what are the protocols? Can you elaborate a little more on that as to how many people are allowed in a single team or stuff like that? Or
in the sense that, see, this is the Salisbury Plain. The coast is about 10 kilometers, so there is no in the sense we were not even. So what they would do is that there would be about 10 to 12 at certain intervals left by the zodiac. So that's what we did. And number two is there are a lot of biohazard safety when you go to South Georgia. I'll tell you. There are inspectors who come onto the boat before we go to South Georgia. After we left the continent and we went to South Georgia, before we could touch base on South Georgia Island, there are inspectors who come on board and check many things. In the sense, we spent 2 days cleaning our gear, everything, and people don't realize in the Velcro also there is grass or seeds, vacuuming. So 2 days we were vacuuming. Each one was, spending time of that dress that they would wear when they get down, because all the Velcro gloves, if they ever found even a blade of grass, one point is cut from the one mark is cut. And if 10 points are cut, if you were 40 people, if they found 10 points, like 10 people, they found a grass or something in their list, nobody could land. We would have to go back. Even they can lose their license. It's really, really stringent. I can tell you lots about it, but that part, Anand, is very interesting. That's how it's now maintained, which is the good part of it. South Georgia, what they're doing now is 4 years back, and even the last rat was killed, and I'll come back to it. But since you asked the question, the protocols are pretty good. But to the main continent, of course, there are people who do, there are people who will say, I'll take you close. There are some tours which, sell you some things, but you have to be careful of that. And we'll come back to that later. But I think the most important here is that 50% per landing for every boat are not allowed. That's how it is. But because we were already less than 40, we didn't have those restrictions. But the team leader, they really are behind their head. They are going through this a lot. It's a lot, and that is a must, Anand, because if you have to preserve this pristine thing. But what is also known is that if they come so close, it's not a bad thing, or it's not a fault. They are. All you have to do is to just maintain silence and let them go back off, and they will go this. Later on, I also put a sequence of a seal chasing Vasudha. But anyway, quickly, let's go ahead quickly because we have a lot to cover. What I did quickly is now feeding. So now what I'm doing is I'm showing you habit. I showed you a bit about the penguins, told you a little bit about the nesting. Now I want to show you 2-3 slides how they feed. So this is the Adelie penguin. And as I said, they go to the sea, they eat a lot of krill, which is actually, I put it as the last slide, but krill is, keep remembering krill. And they fill their stomachs up and they come back to their after some. What happens is that as soon as the baby is born, the one of the adult goes and they have to keep coming back in a day, because it's okay. 1 to 2 days that the mother or father goes to see, the father or mother is sitting with the chick. But as the baby grows older, something happens, and I'll tell you what a little later. Quickly, so feeding, what happens is that they fill their stomachs, come, and this is how you can see the baby trying to put the father or mother is, you can't differentiate, opens his mouth. You can see that gooey, all that substance. The chick has put the whole head into the mouth, and that's how eats what, and the father or mother regurgitates the thing out, and that's how the baby is fed. And you can see. So this is the way the feeding is done, and this is done for all the types of penguins. It's quite generic. This is really the interesting part that for many is that, and which I didn't know at all before we went, that there are what's called creches. Now, I showed you that there are thousands of penguin babies nesting. When the baby starts growing up, both the parents have to then start going, and they can't then go for 3 days or 4 days, one parent cannot satisfy the hunger of the chick, and therefore both have to start going after the baby is about 20 to 25 days old. And therefore, like human beings, if you want to extrapolate, there are what creches are there. And then now I will tell you, and some of you must have guessed, that in the earlier slide when you saw that pink color, this is all penguin shit. Let me tell you, penguins are really cute, but when you're there, it's the most foul-smelling thing on earth. When we start reaching a large penguin colony, even if the wind is towards the boat, from 1 kilometer, 2 kilometers, you can start smelling, and you know a penguin colony is coming because of the smell. And first day of itself, we had realized, first day of meeting the penguins and going on the ground, that even a small speck, as much as a rice grain or a wheat grain of that shit touches your boot or your clothes, and it comes into your room, that whole night you can't smell. So you can imagine, I'm saying as small as a grain of rice or wheat, it really stings. Yeah. And this is a creche and all the poo, and this is, so what happens is that once both the parents have to go to the sea to bring food, obviously all the predators are waiting, and I'll come to what are the predators. Is the two birds, that is the skua and the petrels, are waiting to take the chicks. So therefore, what the parents do is, once they put these kids, what is put means this is a creche, and you can see the adults. These adults are not the parents. The adults are the ones who did not get babies that year, for example, or both their eggs didn't hatch. So these adults then become caretakers and monitor the babies in the creche till the time parents come. Very fascinating. So you can see this guy is guarding, guy or woman, whoever it is, guarding the creche, and you can see all the kids behind. And if they start going out, then these the adult stops them. This also helps them to corral, because the adults can now ward off the predators like the skuas, which then come to eat the bird. So this is a very interesting phenomena in penguins that one didn't know, and one learned it there. And you can see they are wallowing in their poo. Now this is an Adelaide. I just purposely put to show you the photo that this is not a colored penguin. This is a penguin with all the shit on its stomach. I think it's going now for a shower. I don't know what, but this is how it, absolutely filthy. Absolutely, the smell is horrific. So I told you about the nesting, feeding. Then you come what's called quickly porpoising. How do penguins move through the water? It's what's called porpoising, that they keep coming in and out, and it's a great fun to see. You can see it for hours. So this is called porpoising. Let me go fast now. As you can see, this is one. It's okay. So that was porpoising. Then the other interesting phenomena, and then this is the last in terms of penguin behavior, is when they all have to go into the sea. Again, even when they have to go for feeding, they don't just go to the coast and jump off. They all start getting together on the beach, on the stony rocky beach, and they all wait. Of course, they are waiting for the right wave to jump in, but it can be half an hour to 1 hour. But the joke was that as soon as that somebody from the back may be pushing the one in the front, and they start going. But once the first one jumps, everybody jumps. But sometimes we saw that it takes even 1 hour before they jump off. Even they're just waiting, this group. And sometimes the first fellow, if he turns back, everybody also turns back and goes to the next place. But we realize that I think it is somebody pushing the first guy from behind and they start going. But this is very interesting. The reason actually being because they are worried of the leopard seal. Because when they jump in, that's the most vulnerable and they could be eaten by a leopard seal. So this is a very fascinating thing you can again see for hours is they are waiting. And once they start, then they all start jumping. As you can see, they all come in line and keep waiting and then jump off. Same thing happens is when they're coming back to the land. After they have gone to the sea for 2 days, 5 days, 10 days, they all keep waiting in a group and sometimes for an hour before they actually come onto shore. Again, the reason being, and that's when we stop penguins and I'll go to birds, is that their predators are waiting. That's the most vulnerable they are. And that's why they wait for hours before they come actually. So they are actually not even 5 feet from the land, 10 feet, but they all keep accumulating and then suddenly they will come onto the land, start jumping. And this is why it is, and I'll start now going fast, is attacked by the giant petrel. Now I finished the penguins, guys, and so I will now come to birds, and I start with the first bird is what's called the giant petrel and the enemy number 1 of the penguins. And the giant petrel eats the big ones. And I'll come to the skua, which eats only the babies and scavengers, but the giant petrels actually attack the big ones. And again, a wingspan, you can see. So the giant petrel just feasting. And this is what happens, guys, is that when the penguin is coming onto land, the wave could hit him and he could get, little bit, topsy-turvy or he loses his balance. And that's when the petrel attacks. And we actually saw this attack and this penguin being eaten. I was a little away and Vasudha shouted, at top of her voice. I thought, what happened? And she's, because I was just roaming around a little away, taking some pictures. And then, so by the time I reached, this is what had happened. Quickly is they had torn open the king penguin. And the bird behind his middle is the skua, which I'll come to. But I know some of you may not like it, but this is happening in front of you. The penguin coming onto land and being killed and being eaten. Quickly, a little bit about biology, Anand, is that, I don't want to get into detail, they're morphs. So the king petrel, or the giant petrels are usually light and then dark colored. But light colored are only very few, and they are only on the main continent. Only 5% of giant petrels are light colored, while 95% which are in the Antarctica Peninsula and away are darker. But the important thing is if you see on the nostrils, these bivalve nostrils, why are they there? It's an adaptation of nature. Is all the salt water keeps coming out from there. Whatever the salt they're inheriting keeps coming out from that nostril, which you can see on the top here, the bivalve. And the next, and you can see the beak. It's quite good to, like a eagle, vulture beaks to, tear apart the penguins. And here you can see the giant petrels of the dark morph. And both the petrels, you can see that water is dripping down from their beak. That's actually the salt water coming out from the valve, which I showed you in the earlier picture. Coming quickly, the next bird is the skua. And the skua is again, what you call a scavenger. Really the main scavenger around, but the skua is waiting for the chicks. Skua is one of the main enemy for chicks. The giant petrel only attacks the bigger penguins when they're coming onto land and eats them. But the skua is really after the chicks. And you can see here a small baby penguin being torn apart by 2 skuas in front of our eyes. So, of course, many people will, once I showed this, oh, why didn't you save the penguin? You say, don't meddle with nature. You just, you're just, but yeah, my Vasudha had a little bit of teary eyes to see a cute penguin being, torn apart by the skua. Quickly, then moving on to another important bird in the Antarctica continent is the imperial shag, or you can call it the cormorant also. It's the same, for common. But interesting thing about the Antarctica or the imperial shag is that they nest only on the continent, number 1. Number 2 is from 200 years, 300 sailors know that if they see this bird, they are close to land. That's also an important thing quickly. This is the shag. Next quickly is another very interesting bird is the Antarctica fulmar. Again, guys, you have to understand that these pictures have been taken when you are in the zodiac, moving waves. So, and this one is from a 600 lens handheld on a bubbly small raft. So sometimes 1 or 2 of this picture quality, but we are lucky to at least have seen it, because people have gone and not even seen sometimes some of these birds. Antarctica fulmar, again, only on the Antarctica continent. The Cape petrels. Again, the Cape petrels is interesting is that they eat a lot of times what the whales have eaten or something, or the leopard seals when they've killed things. And so you get a lot of congregation. Or some fish shoal or krill shoal has come up, and you see the Cape petrels feeding. Very pretty birds again. This is a Cape petrel nesting also we saw. Again, this is again on a high hillock, but we are in the boat wobbling down on the Zodiac Anand. So the picture, but this is a Cape petrel nesting. This is the Antarctica tern nesting. This is, I think, the most, when I said, it is the Adelie penguin, the emperor penguin, and the snow petrel are the three things that actually live permanently on the Antarctica continent. And this is what's called the snow petrel. Below it is not water, it's an ice block. They're sitting on the ice block and moving. And it's a really pretty bird. And this is because I got one shot of it flying at one time. So the snow petrel. And the snow petrel goes all the way also to the South Pole, which is -70 sometimes. So that this is a very interesting bird. Lucky to have seen and shot it. Quickly, the snow sheathbill. The snow sheathbill is really like your vulture on the land and birds that we see, because it is just going around cleaning everything. The second interesting thing about the snow sheathbill is that all the other birds that you saw, the penguins are birds, as I said, the petrels, the skuas, all have webbed feet. The sheathbill is the only bird on Antarctica, shorebird, which is doesn't have a webbed feet. Let's move. Kelp gull, beautiful. This is an interesting bird. And again, I'm sure there are many others, ornithologists in the group also. This is the southern Georgia pipit. It's an endemic only on the island of South Georgia. Again, now getting very endangered. Very few left. Again, as luck would be, it came and sat at my feet suddenly, and and lucky to have it. And this is a very, very rare bird and endemic of South Georgia.
For it getting endangered would be?
Interesting point is that it got endangered because of the rats and other things, the nest. It was that, and therefore it took them 40 years to get rid of all the rats. It's only 3 years ago that the last rat was killed on South Georgia. So 1214 was the last rat. 6 years now. We do have pintails, but this is the South Georgia pintail. It's an endemic of South Georgia. This is two endemics there. And quickly, I think need to run. How much time we have spent?
We have time. Yeah.
No. But let's question. So, and now come to the main bird. With what I had gone, actually, the others were all bonus, as I would say, and really lucky to have seen many of those birds. But for me, as a bird watcher, always, Anand, we also will realize that it's always the albatross. And for the group, the albatross is, and I'll come back to the wandering albatross, has the largest wingspan among all birds in the world, 3.5 meters plus. This is about 3 meters plus, which is the royal albatross. Again, please understand, it's moving at breathtaking speed in the wind, and therefore this picture is a bit. I shouldn't apologize for the picture, but I'm just saying the earlier pictures are clearer. But this one is, even getting a royal albatross was dream come true. Another picture, and it goes along the wave, and some of them they go around the world, guys. And I'll come back to it later, how they use the currents, and Anand can tell you all these things in a lecture next time or later sometime. But you get to just see pictures now. This is a pair of southern albatross, royal albatross. Then come to this is the wandering albatross, and really something that I've been wanting to see all my life, which I said, the bird with the largest wingspan. And we were lucky not only to see the bird in the flight, but I will also now show you pictures of its nesting, which is absolutely rare and a privilege to have been able to land on that island. And so this is Anand, royal albatross, wandering albatross, nesting. And this is an island called Priyan Island. The Royal Geographic Society of UK is maintaining and keeping a strict watch on this small. It's an island as big as a football field, just so that people get an idea of. And it's like going up in Pune to Parvati Hill, like that kind of a tekadi, just about 200 meter high, or not 200, 300, 400 meter high hillock. That's how the island is. And on the top, there's a plateau, and this is where the albatross nest. Again, they pay for life. They come back once in 3 years, and I don't know how they again know they have to come back, and they meet the same couple. but that's the mysteries of science, which nobody is still being able to decipher. But they also do pair for life, and every 3 years they come to nest. Quickly, you can see now here the big wingspan of the albatross. It was again luck, because you never would get a picture like this unless it was nesting. Again, Anand, you asked me how far we are from there. They have built a cordon and a kind of a thing. So this is nearly 100 meters away, 80 meters away. This is my 600 lens. So,
So, I was going to say that. Could you mention what dimensions of your lens? So that
and there are interesting things. If people ask photography, I will tell you, because what my main lens, since you asked it, I thought 600 bada lens. You need my lens, which was useful, was only my 70-300 actually at the end of the day, because everything else was too close then. So the bird pictures which are flight or like this were with the 600. Otherwise, and then another thing is, you cannot handle two lenses there, and it's so cold. I'll come back to the questions when you come. It's crazy. You're talking about minus temperatures, and we Indians are not used to working with gloves on. So it's a mess. I'm not getting into the torturous parts. I'm just getting into the fun, and you forget all the torture and the puking and the cold late. This is another albatross. So as people will understand, there are various kinds of albatross species. So this is the black-browed albatross. Another interesting thing about the wandering albatross, or any albatross, is it's a big bird. When it eats a lot, it cannot fly then. So then it stays on the water, and for 6-7 hours before it can again take off. So this is just to give you another little bit natural history of the albatross, that once it eats a lot, it cannot fly. So, okay, quickly finishing from birds, I want to quickly wind up. Again, don't ask me how I got this fish. The Russian crew with the line were fishing, and I just happened to be out in the cold, go out, and I realized on behind the deck that they were fishing. And it's interesting here is, so I did get a picture of 2 of the Antarctica fish. But what is interesting here, and I think if Sangeeta is still there in the audience, my friend Dr. Sangeeta is from Pune. She's done a PhD on proteins. And Sangeeta, I will ask you later, but what I'll tell the group now is, and that much I know is, and read a bit, is that these fish have a certain enzyme in the certain protein in the blood, which doesn't allow its blood to freeze, because you can understand it's minus temperatures. So you would have asked the question, why don't they freeze? But they have a certain protein, and maybe Sangeeta later, who's done a PhD on proteins, can tell us more about protein in bloods and this freezing. But it's amazing. This is what nature baffles you. But lucky again, I got to get a fish, and you can see why their eyes are big. The penguin eyes. Then I'll come to seal eyes. The eyes are big because 6 months is dark, and again, like the owls on land. When come quickly now to whales. Most of the time you see a lot of whales, but you see them, just the sprouts. We were just lucky once to see an Antarctica minke whale. There are about 5-6 kinds of whales, and as people know, I'm sure that the blue whale is the biggest mammal on Earth. Its tongue is as big as an elephant, or it weighs as much as an elephant. Just the tongue of the blue whale. Its heart is as big as a small Maruti car. But anyway, we are not going to the blue whale, and there are whole stories of its destruction. But the good news was, in 2020, last year, 55 whales were seen near St. Georgia, which is the first time that there is the sign of recovery. And we do have 6-7 species of whales, but what I will show you a few pictures now is the humpback whale. The humpback whale is really interesting, is that it has the largest migration on planet, in the sense that it goes swimming nearly 1,600 kilometers up and down, or not up and down. What I mean is 12 to 1,300 kilometers. It goes all the way up to Canada and up, and then comes back all the way in summer to feed. Every year it does this journey. How much is the kilometers also roughly? About 1,600 to, it can do one way. So it's 3,000 kilometers 2 ways they are known to have done. So it's really an amazing, and to see this whale, we were on the Zodiac, this is not on the big boat. Suddenly 2 of them came, and we were again, only the 2 Zodiacs were lucky, because they move fast. And as I said earlier, Anand, every day we would have 6 Zodiacs landing with 6 people on board, and plus 1 who's driving the Zodiac, the crew. And we would go, 2-3 kilometers here, there. So 2 Zodiacs were lucky that day to see up front. We were really scared, because they nearly went, one of them below our Zodiac. And we just thought, if it bloody sprouts or gets up, we're going to tumble, So this was touching distance and real great fun with the humpbacks. So this is its mouth. Imagine this is like a big truck opening its mouth, in front of you. This is back, the dorsal. I'm just running here. These are the two humpbacks. Yeah, I'm just looking at time now. So these are the two. These are the two humpbacks which came next to us, as I told you. This is from my 70s. This is not my big lens, Anand. So you can know. So they are really close. This is from 70 to 100 actually. And what is important here, guys, to understand is the tail. If you look at the tail, every humpback whale, the tail is different, and the markings that you see behind, it looks like scratch markings. But from these markings, like on the tiger, Anand will tell you more, or others in the group can tell you more. Every tiger, if you photograph, is different from the other tiger by its little bit different in its marking. The same way with the whale, the marking of these ridges on its fluke or the tail are different, and this marking. So if you we send this picture now, there is a database which is being maintained. They know exactly what is this whale, where they have been now. So they're keeping a roster now of all the whales that are being, and they can know which whale it is and where is it, when, and seen, and so they don't have to even tag it now. So very fascinating again didn't know this before, that every whale is unique, and that by its markings you can identify the whale. These are the lovely side. Imagine this from 5 feet, 10 feet actually, that this is what you see. We were hoping to see it bleaching. In whales, what is called bleaching is when the whole whale comes out and then falls. But at one level, our Zodiac driver, the guide, or you want to call him guide or whatever, who was driving, he was praying that they don't bleach because we are so close. Because they don't want an accident. But we were hoping, at least I was hoping they breach, but then it didn't happen. But even this is not too bad to have happened. That when the tail goes down and they keep doing, this is how it looks. It's just there's no words to describe these kind of phenomena when they happen in the wild. And sometimes, of course, not sometimes, we found this on the beach once, the vertebra of one of the whales. Quickly, seals. There are 5 kinds of seals that are found in the Antarctic and the Antarctic Peninsula. The first is the crab-eater seal. Again, you will ask me in the question, they don't eat crabs. There are no crabs there. What happened is that a German guy, not a German guy, the German word for krill, the food that they eat, is called crab. And they eat crab. And therefore, it became crab. And for some reason, it just stayed on. So that's why they're called crab seal. And you can see as if it's eaten a pan. And again, like the poo of the penguin, because the krill is brownish, pinkish brown, the poo is brown. Even here, this guy has eaten, a guy or whoever now, is eaten the krill and is now sleeping on the ice, berg. You can see ice float. You can see that its mouth is pink from feeding. So this is the first seal that I'm telling you, which is the crab-eater seal. And they spend their whole life actually on the pack ice like this. They go eat and come back and sleep on. They really don't go much onto land. The second is quickly now the Weddell seal. The Weddell seal is grayish on the top and whitish below. We'll get questions later. This is the real predator in the waters of Antarctica, is the leopard seal. Again, very difficult, and not, if you're lucky to see. We did manage to see 2, but they are isolatory, and they really are difficult. But this is the leopard seal is the main predator, but its diet is not 100% penguins, but this is what is the main threat that the penguins fear. Whenever they get into water, the penguins are only scared of the food chain. It's the top of the food chain. Thanks, Vasu. So that's the leopard seal for you. This is another picture. Actually, the right side feels as if that split image. It is not. It was resting on the water, the ice. So when we pass by, it raised its head. So that's why you see half the picture a bit wet. Whichever way you look, his right side looks, or his left and our right looks wet. The leopard seal. Coming then to the cute, and again, I'm not going into details. Like the seals also are eared seals, which have outer ears and no ears. But the fur seals have ears. This is a baby fur seal. This is a quick story I wanted to tell. That Anand, you were saying, how do you keep distance? And that's what we were told when the seals, they don't really, they come to you, but you have to either raise your hand or just shout a little "you" or something, and they usually go, but they are inquisitive. So this is a sequence quickly of Vasudha coming down. This is South Georgia, and on one hillock where we went to see the macaroni penguins. And this seal, as you can see, is suddenly interested. Who is this coming down? The next slide. So she tries to move off. The second picture, she tries to go away from the path, but he keeps following her towards her. The third picture, you can see she's doing shoo, shoo, go. And that's when she starts shouting at me. The fourth is, you can see now that he's come really close and she's trying to really run away. And the fourth is that you can see a sigh of relief on her face that he also realizes she's not interesting, and she has a sigh of relief that he has gone off. But just some fun. Like my son had called that, he like a dog at home, Bunty. This guy also, this seal is, they love to keep scratching themselves. Quickly, again, luck. We saw one of the few, they may be really, really rare. Again, albino fur seal baby, really cute. Everybody fell in love with it, and everybody wanted to take it home, but obviously we had to be far away and can't touch it. And this is, you can see, drinking milk from the mother. Another interesting quick point is that the seals are mammals. Okay, in all the mammals, the milk of the seals has the highest fat content. It's more than 50 to 60% fat in that milk, and therefore these kids grow up very fast. And the second is also if the parents go out, they can sustain for a longer time if they are hungry, if they are left alone, what I mean. Coming quickly last to the last seal, that is the southern elephant seal. These are after the blue whale and the elephant, the biggest mammal on earth. The big male weighs up to 4,000 plus kilos. This is it's not an elephant. The only reason they got its name is like the male, you can see here, having a nostril which is a little protruded, and this is still a younger male. The little older male, means in age, has that nostril or this tip coming out a little bit more sprout. So therefore, it's called the elephant seal. Up to 4,000 kilos. Obviously, there are some kids in this talk and all, but for the adults, someday I will tell you the most fascinating thing, or a lecture on southern elephant seal, is about their mating, and we'll keep that for some other day. But it's absolutely another fascinating story which I can talk for 2 hours. Yeah.
Everyone, please observe their canine teeth. These are carnivores, so you can see the canines very prominently here also.
And yeah, they bite, and in the fights they actually kill the other males also. They're known, other males are known to die also in their fights. Where imagine a 4,000 kilo, two males fighting for their. What they do is, what I can tell about mating since I started. I won't get into the details of the above 18 talk, but below 18 talk male, the male goes on to shore during mating season, gets a place for like 20 meters or something on the beach and says this is his area, and then about 50 females ka harem he has, and that's how they, and they fight. Once he has won the fight, he gets that about 10 to 20 meter, because on the beach you can't go vertically, you have to go horizontally. So that's how they keep getting their space. It's the same way that fishermen fight for their boats. The males, they fight for their, fishermen fighting for their parking or landing their boats. Same way the elephant seal fight for their little piece of land for mating in the mating season. Going quickly, I told you and they are the best divers in the world. The only mammal that can go up to 3,000 feet down, up to 2 hours they can hold their breath. Crazy. It's their life is, that's what I said. It can be a whole 2 hours talk only on the elephant seal. This is just they also molt once the mating is over. The male of they're lying. This is the skin, the molt coming out, and this is the fin of the flipper, and it's got nails. It's a mammal. This is, like we say, wallowing. That's a word also for seals. That all you can see just wallowing. Terrible sting as usual. A big mull going through the king colony. All of them have to move aside when he was going. I had made a video, but then the video doesn't work on Zoom. I cut a clip actually, Anand, for 2 minutes, because people to hear the sounds. But we realized that testing it, Zoom video doesn't work really well, and this was everybody has a different random.
We played videos actually.
Yeah, but some of
some of the time. Yeah.
Okay, coming now nearly to the end of the talk quickly. What I kept talking the whole time, the main food of everybody on the Antarctica, from the small fish to the elephant seal to the biggest mammal on earth, the blue whale, is this small little thing. It's 2 grams at the most, and it goes to about maximum 1 centimeter to 1.5 centimeters. So it's really small. I was lucky to get it because, as usual, doing something. I was on the Zodiac. I was lying on my stomach when we were going through the ice pack, and I was looking down, and I suddenly saw one krill. I mean, there are millions, trillions of krill, but they don't come really, and you can't see them. As I said, they're 1 centimeter. But I managed to get a picture of the krill, and this is really, really one blue whale eats about 4 tons of krill per day. And so you can imagine. So this is the basis. And Anand, when you mentioned climate change, with the warming, with many things happening, and the most other stupid thing is, and we can discuss that and some other day, or maybe in the question a bit, why do humans want to go and also now start harvesting krill? And they're harvesting this now is because the Americans, they want to give this to the chicken feed and the aquaculture. And even India, that I'm not being critical of India, which I don't like to be, but India's mission, one of the 5 things when India set a mission to Antarctica for the first time in 1981, one of their points was that we will go and see how we can commercially harvest krill. So what I mean is that was a thought in the 80s. So let's leave it at that. But the other thing is nobody really even thought that, can this be eaten? Is this tasty for humans? But everybody, even Indians, they had it in their charter actually, the first 5 points, that no Indian had eaten it, but they wanted to go to Antarctica to harvest it commercially to eat. But it's not really edible for, you can eat it, but there's nothing really. It's more, so it's a crustacean. Just to, and you can ask those questions to Anand, what are crustaceans? And then, but this is the basis of the whole life of Antarctica, and all the whales of the world, all the seals of the world, most of the seals go down there. This is what is most important, is the krill. And as I told you, because of the currents in the world, and the krill live on phytoplankton, because they have to also eat something. And that is very, very rich in these waters for these 1,000 kilometers, which I said, between the Antarctica continent and the South Georgia island, which is about 1,000 kilometers. This region is where the world's, all the nutrients come, and the krill come, and the whales come. So I think this is really, if you don't remember anything, just remember krill. Most important. Climate change, we are getting into the very big details. Obviously, climate is changing, temperatures are warming, and what it means is, for the penguins, what it means quickly is that if there is no unexposed rock, the penguin cannot nest, the Gentoo, the Adelie. So therefore, they are having problems. And the problem is not sometimes of the ice not melting or what, it's snowfall happening at certain different time, the timing changing. So suddenly, when it is supposed to be summer, not much snowfall happening. As I told you, in February, we had a bad weather of snow falling. So these are all the changes, and what it means to the penguin is that if they don't get snow-free patches like these rocky, they cannot nest. Quickly, the next, the Adelie penguin, which I said live on the continent, it gets hot, they go and eat ice. And this is also, we can see that we could see them because that was a hot day, which was 3 degrees for us, the first day when the sun came out, but it was really hot for them. And they all started coming to eat ice. You can see this guy plucking good, ice and penguin, Adelie. Quickly, climate change, obviously what happens in the Himalayas happens in the Antarctica, that with the temperatures rising. 100 years ago, there is a picture of this, not 100, but 90 years ago, where this glacier was really where the green grass is. And now you can see in about 80 years, the glacier has retreated quite a bit. And so, so the same things, some of them are superimposed, which I said, what happened in the Himalayas are also happening here. But the main thing is for the life, which I was trying to say, climate change, what it mean to the breeding, to the nesting. Icebergs. Again, this looks lovely. This is a 11-kilometer long iceberg, part of it, which came off 8 years ago from the Larsen ice shelf. But this is what happens when because of the warming happening, large chunks are now falling off from the continent shelf. And these icebergs actually go around the earth then. And there is a website, which I can tell the readers later, where they are monitoring each iceberg. For example, this iceberg that you see, it's called A57A. It's been registered. So, they know how this iceberg is moving every day. It's tagged. And this is, as I said, I couldn't get the 11-kilometer long picture, but also for scale, guys, this is more than a 30-story or 40-story high-rise building of Bombay. This is what is on the top. And, this is only 1/10 up. And, so these are the issues. But of course, when you see them, they're lovely. But effects of ice is where the ice shelves are breaking from the continent, and again, in a very simplistic climate change thing, obviously, if this ice melts, sea rise and blah blah. Let's not get there, but I cannot finish a story, and these are the last 3 pictures now. We are all finishing, guys, and I cannot finish a story of Antarctica. And this is again to whet your appetite for the next time, is the whole exploration of Antarctica. And this person is the most, he did not reach South Pole first. Okay, let me tell you. But still, he is, okay, who is he? You can read him. He's Sir Ernest Shackleton, but he is the most well-known expedition person in the whole history of expeditions in the North and South Pole. The reason why is because it is the greatest story ever of perseverance and survival. In the beginning, I had shown you that ships get stuck. You know, I showed you the ice pack. Quickly, 3 points I'll tell you about Shackleton, and I'll stop. Number one, he would have been the first guy in 1909. He's a British explorer. 1909, sorry. He went first time. He reached nearly 120 kilometers only short of the South Pole. So can you imagine? So he went, he trekked the whole thing. No, there were no routes then, nothing. He went through 1,200 kilometers of ice, and just he fell sick, and they returned 120 kilometers less. Later on, it was realized from the South Pole. And then that Amundsen, Amundsen is the person who went first time to South Pole in 1911. But what is the Shackleton was that Shackleton was very disappointed that he couldn't be the first person to reach the South Pole. He made another expedition. He said he will go. He said he'll be the first person to go from the top to the south of the trans-Antarctic. He wanted to be the first person. He left. He went to the same place, South Georgia. And from South, that is in 2014. Sorry, what am I talking? 1914.
1914, yeah.
1914. And from South Georgia, he left. And he reached where roughly we went, to where the pictures I showed you some. That is the Weddell Sea, up just at the tip of the continent, and just a kilometer or two, not before the continent, his ship got stuck, and they were stuck. And the whole story is, there were 44 men, and his story is that he got all the 44 men back live, guys. And this means it's amazing, the whole story, and that's why I said. I cannot talk, at least because for me he's like a hero and a kind of a thing. But in Harvard and other management schools, his example is given as what is leadership. Leadership is not. Therefore, he is the guy who was the most unsuccessful in life in a way because he couldn't reach his goals, but is talked about the most because a leader is one who never leaves his crew, and that is what Shackleton is all about. And someday, if you want and others, we can talk about the whole story about Shackleton, of how they lived for 1.5 years, how Shackleton then, in the smallest boat, which was not even more than 8 feet long, 6 of them left the island where one of the pictures I showed and went 1,200 kilometers to South Georgia in that 8 feet boat and got a rescue team and came back. So it's crazy. So 2 years, these people were on the ice. But main thing about Shackleton is he risked, and then he said himself, I will go and get help, and not one of them died. And it's marvelous. And nobody in the last 100 years still has done that crossing in a boat of 8 feet long. So anyway, it's amazing, guys, and that's why I had to mention about Shackleton. And one of his quotes is always, which I think is a quote for my life, is difficulties are just things to overcome after all. And and then poor guy, then he died in South Georgia on another trip. He came down on another trip some years down, and then his grave is there. We went to his grave. All that is to whet your appetite for the next time. And this is which I didn't talk, is this is South Georgia, the whaling station, and there is a whole story to Antarctica which can't be complete without talking about the whaling. And the whaling actually, guys, stopped only in 2019. This whaling station, of course, closed in 1950s, but the Japanese were still whaling in the Antarctica waters as late as 2019, till the year we were gone. But this is another story. But this is from where Shackleton went and where he came back to get rescue, and his grave is there. Blah blah. This is for some other day. This is that whaling station. And last point to tell in this whaling is why was this important and why that's in the next lecture ever is the whaling and the sea that got it to near extinction. All the seals and the whales of the world were gone because in the 1930s to the 1950s, in the two wars, a lot of food and a lot of oil and fat and margarine was made from whale and seal meat. So that is and the clothes for the woman, the fur. So fur coats. And therefore, can you imagine millions of seals? And in this bay, and on one day there were 900 whales had landed. There's a story of that. So it's mind-boggling. That's another story. And this is I showed a picture of once this to a young girl, and said, "See this Gentoo penguins has got ponytails. Her mother makes her pleats every day when she goes to school," and she really believed me. But that's not what it is. It's the front shot of a Adelie penguin. Sorry. So thank you guys, and guys, when I say it's both guys and girls, and this is really happy to connect with you all. And if you ever want to be in touch, we are most happy to answer questions, not only about this, but any things, as I said, from tigers in Kana, whatever our nomadic life is, and so we, as I said, been lucky to go to the 7 continents. So we would be really happy to share any of our experiences, tips, if you are going to the Amazon, if you're going to Antarctic. Also, that's another lecture if you want someday, Anand, to Everest Base Camp, to Amazon, So you can always get in touch with us. That's Vasudha and me, and that's our emails. It's very simple: gpangare and vpangare@gmail.com. And thanks, Anand, for this opportunity. And now I stop talking and questions.
Okay, so take a sip of water. Thank you. You were okay. So I'm sure you must have been bowled over by the diversity of course, experiences and knowledge. And yeah, I think we can have a dozen series of lectures, with Ganesh. So Ganesh, if you are ready, I think Viti, if you can put him on spotlight, please. We'll start with the questions. So there are a whole bunch of questions, I think some of which have been answered already. So I'll put in the first one, that is by, one second, by Hema. What are the effects of, so you mentioned some bits of the climate change, but effects of ozone hole, and like any visible effects that you saw on the diversity that you personally felt was very strong?
Yeah, in the sense, guys, I'm going to answer to the best of my knowledge, and of course reading and spending 5 weeks there, plus reading before March and later. What has happened is one effect is, as I said, the Adelie penguins, which were more in number and which were in the continent, and they preferred the more cold weather, than the Gentoo penguins. Now the Gentoos are taking over the Adelie. That is one visible effect that one sees. You can't see climate change, things rising, but you can see you hear from Howard, who's been going there for 25 years, telling you the number of icebergs have increased. But the main thing which we saw, quickly to answer, is that the Gentoo is now more, the Gentoo penguins are more now than Adelie. The Adelie are going down. Vasudha, you can also help me any question. Huh?
Yeah, please bring her into the frame if she can.
She was doing most of the video recording on this thing, and yeah.
So one suggestion, of course, lots of people have said that lovely pictures and great information. Hi, Vasudha.
Hi.
We've never met, but yeah, thank you. So one question, comment from Suhas Paranjpe is that a book on this would be a treasure to cherish, So I think you should consider that as a suggestion and take it up.
Yeah, thanks. But what we may do is, these days we are all moving now towards, for the age group 8 to 10 books, because we've realized that a lot of them are written from the Western perspective sometimes. Right. And the second is that basic questions are not answered. You can ask a scientist so many things sometimes, but we have sometimes, it's like somebody may not, a penguin is a bird. Like, let's start from there.
So I'll probably modify the statement and say that please write a Marathi book, for the 8 to 10 segment, or a Hindi book, or, I think multilingual literature is also probably what can take it to the commonest denominator of the country then from there.
Thank you. Let's see. Yeah.
Okay. So
it's a Ramadan month, so inshallah someday.
Yeah. So Pranav has asked a very interesting question: is that what is the difference between climates in the Arctic and the Antarctic region? So beside the temperature or relative humidity, like season and day lengths, etc., what wind patterns? What is the basic difference between the Antarctic and Arctic region, if you can?
One is, of course, the size. The second is that on the Antarctic, nobody lives. On the Arctic, you have many, you have the Inuits, indigenous people living.
Right.
So there is a whole thing. So, I can promise him to answer him later if email is there. But but these two things, one immediately I can answer is that the Antarctica has no human beings, in the sense only the ones who have gone now on a base and live temporarily. But there is no habitation of humans. Even in the past, nobody lived. But in the Arctic, you have the Inuits and many, people living, and it's a different kind of,
So Rishan has asked this question: how big can the creches get? Like how many of the penguins?
Well, technically a creche is from 2 onwards. Okay, let's be clear. So when 2 to 3, but
in penguin there are more than 60,000 pairs.
Vasudha, can you come into the frame? Sorry, you're out.
So, like for example, on Salisbury Plain, there are more than 60,000 nesting pairs. So you can see that many babies being born, or maybe half that. But they are not all together, in the sense that they'll be in groups,
But so quickly to answer, but we did see more than 200, 300 creche also in one creche. Chicks. And it's very difficult. See, actually, it's an interesting question, but when you're there, you're first battling the cold, you're battling. First time I stepped, let me tell you, I slipped so badly. I was in all 4, my hands and feet were in the air, trying to then save my camera, and I fell on hard ice on my back. And that's when actually the poo touched me. I didn't want to get into there. And therefore, that whole night we couldn't sleep because, it had gone into my skin, I guess, also a bit. But these are big creches also. And therefore, there are people, monitoring these creches. But that's a very interesting phenomena of penguins that one is.
So Vasudha and Ganesh, how much time of preparation before you go to a place like this? How much of reading? How much of background preparation had you all been given presentations, and what was the setup like that?
Yeah, so there are 2 things now. Quickly to answer this, so if people want to go, and I can answer it in that also. Many may want to say if you have to go, what? As I said now, obviously there is what is called Antarctica tourism has started. Good, bad, ugly is not. We need to go if it is responsible. And now as I told you, there is an international Antarctica Tourism Association also, which really monitors very carefully. Nothing can be dropped on Antarctica. All the boats, even our boat, they have to empty the excreta only when they come back. Cannot be left in the sea. Not a single thing. If anybody is seen violating, others can report. Their license can go, and then it's gone forever. So, but large ships can go, and therefore, but they can't. You don't really go then to land and then go inside.
Yes, no, the preparation.
The preparation, therefore, is preparation for some could be zero. Is just you take a warm clothes and go. If you're going on like a cruise liner, you never get off. You sit in a balcony. You're paying then of course $50,000 for 5 days, and and then you're looking. The other preparation, of course, is then which company goes. Not many, because this was a specific expedition boat. We were 6 months in advance. They were in touch with us. There was some little help that they wanted from us because we're going to be doing landings every day. Lots of insurances, those are things we will talk later. But more than preparation, I'll tell you what happens. Every landing, when you have to land, there are 4 layers you have to wear. In the sense, you have your inner layer, inner thermal, then kind of a sweater, then the down jacket, and then the 4th is the snow jacket. So these are the 4 things you wear. Gloves also, you have the inner, then the wet gloves. And so these are the preparations you really do. There's no jogging you start doing or none of those. You're not doing an expedition on the Himalayas. So reading
I'm saying in terms of reading up, in terms of the climate change and other things that are there.
So what we have always done in life, and I don't think you should follow it, is both of us, before we go to a place, we try to read as little as possible.
Okay.
Ulta, because we want to get everything. So therefore we want to go back because there is a lot. But what I'm trying to say is that some reading you should do, but leave the rest to don't go there, because if we had read a lot, we would have said, I didn't see this bird, I didn't do that, because let me tell you guys, 95% of the people, even who do the cruises, who pay a lot and go, don't get to see what we did. As I told you, this was a specific expedition, in the sense chartered for wildlife, for people who want, all paid for. This is no subsidy from anybody. But as I told you, the team leader has been going for 25 years. So this was a very interesting group that had, so none of them, the people in the group, all of them were interested in wildlife, nature.
Right.
But none of them were scientists in terms of working on Antarctica per se.
Right.
So they could have been quickly.
There's also
The
Robert
preparation is clothing.
Yeah.
Preparation is all about clothing. That is what Vasu will tell you.
and walking and managing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they had it depends on the company you're going with, because they had given us a list of things that
Yeah, medicines. Okay,
the
now
basics that we need to
I'm not
take.
getting into too many
That's
details
all.
because
Yeah.
those are things that when you really go, the medicines you carry, for the sickness, what you do,
And I think also, surviving the roaring 40s and getting out from.
Yeah, for that there is.
That was, we had a doctor on board.
Yeah, there's a doctor on board. And the second is we didn't only have one Drake's passage because we went all the way we had to cross to Georgia. That was another 1,000-kilometer passage, the Scotia Sea, and from Georgia to Falkland Island was another 1,000 kilometers. So it was. So we did about in nautical miles, about 4,000 nautical miles, the whole thing. Okay. Anyway, next question.
So even Robert Swan does the 2041. He is also one of the big climate change persons who works.
Yeah, so see, now there are a lot of people who do this. Anand, if you are interested, if you get 50 people, we get the money, we can also help you. We get the boat, hire the boat, so those things it's all about money. And one point of the story is therefore I couldn't do it 30 years ago. Right. Today again, Vasudha and I, luckily because Nachiket and Karthik are working, we have no bank balance again now. It's that expensive for a commoners like us to do it, So
I'll quickly, there are lots of questions. I think we'll keep it a little shorter so that you can also save breath. So what binds the stones of a penguin nest?
Nothing. They just pile them up.
Right. And Shrujan has asked, do you know what is the wingspan of a skua and a giant petrel in comparison?
Yeah, skua is about a meter maximum, tip to tip, and a giant petrel is 3.5. No, sorry, giant petrel is 3 meters nearly. 3 meters, between 2.5 and 3, and the wandering albatross is 3.5.
So Pranav has asked, how do other marine birds excrete the salt like the giant petrels if they don't have those bivalve nostrils? Or do they?
Very good question, but one will have to do research and find out. Maybe it comes out of the shit. I'm just trying to look at it the way other things happen, other birds and, or they pell it out because, throw it out. I mean, that's the only way I can know from bird behavior, Anand. So there is no, but the petrels actually live on the main continent. They're eating, which is salty. I think that's why nature, they got it. Right. But others, the answer which cannot be wrong is true. They regurgitate. We know for sure birds do that. They throw it out. And the second is through shit. Because they don't have sweat glands really that way like mammals where our salt comes out.
I don't know. There's somebody by the name MIA3. The comment is, isn't killing rats also a problem? I think on Georgia, basically.
No. Okay, let's clear. So let's be very clear. Now, this is interesting. I'm not going to talk too long on this. Number one, the rats were introduced by the whalers. So they were not species from that island. Okay. So these were, which came in the boats. Every boat, even in the modern boats, that's what they actually check on the biohazard when they check. They actually went around in the kitchen everywhere looking if there was any rat on the boat. That was one mark gone if there was a rat. Anyway, if there was a rat, they wouldn't have allowed us to be. Coming back, so these rats came with the whalers. Number one. Number two, they are from outside. And because they are killing the endemic species, they had to be exterminated.
So if I can add to this, see, on any islands where there are endemic species, whether it's Australia or in Antarctica, especially Antarctica and places or South Georgia, where these are absolutely restricted maybe to one island, there are rules available where extermination of all the brought in kind of exotic or disturbing wildlife can be terminated out. Okay, Jiti has asked a very interesting question: how many folds do albatros's wings have to nest like that? Like how many times do they fold? If such being long wings have to, is it just two?
I think they have one main fold and then whatever. It's one fold really.
Yeah. Sangeeta Sawant has added this comment that yes, Ganesh, they have an antifreeze protein in their blood, which prevents blood from freezing and forming crystals. And so Saurabhi has said that her husband is doing his postdoc on antifreeze proteins in University of Pennsylvania. Okay, great. So
thank you, Sangeeta.
Rahul Palekar has asked whether he also saw killer whales, and Pranav has asked what is the prey of elephant seals.
Yeah, so killer whales, when they say it's the orcas, okay, and they are basically, there's a whole thing again, whether they are large dolphin or whales, but let's not get into those classification. And also in the orca, they are actually white and gray, in color, very white. And yes, they are the most amazing creatures, but we saw them but no picture. We couldn't, because they move very fast. we saw 3 orcas move. They can be larger groups, and the orcas really throw their prey, the seals in the air, and the orca can kill a blue whale also. Sorry, not they've known to kill humpback whales, which are so big.
Yeah.
But we did see them, but sadly, okay, guys, all the pictures are taken by Vasudha and me in this presentation. There's not a single picture from the Google on there. Therefore, I did not put a orcas or, because I had not taken a picture. So just to let you know.
And food of elephant seals?
Elephant seal, again, they are also carnivorous. They eat also baby seals. They eat, but they also go down and eat krill, fish, and other things. So krill is eaten by everybody. The krill is the main crustacean and main protein for everybody.
Base of the food chain of that whole area.
Yeah.
So how much of Antarctica is explored, and are there any absolutely untouched areas?
If I put it 0.001% can be explored.
Okay, lovely.
See, what you have to understand is that this continent, which is, as I said, larger than Australia or India, China put together, is a massive ice. At the South Pole, you have 10,000 feet of ice, actually. So what's below it, who knows? And on the top, it's let's understand that there are not more than 100 expeditions which people have tried to go from the coast to the South Pole. It's still very difficult. You can't do it.
Sanjay Lokur has added a very interesting question. Is that in 1909, how did they figure out where exactly is the South Pole? 1909, when the first,
yeah. Okay, Sanju, you are the engineer. I'm not the engineer, but let's get. They had what's called the sextant and the sun.
Yeah.
Yeah. The sextant and looking at this whatever, and then again because the sun again there is very different angle. So whatever they use the sextant, I can tell you what Amundsen did and what even Shackle did. And at that time, if you read more, they were developing instruments by which they could do these measurements. But for the group to understand, it's very interesting. The Amundsen, the point where he put his the South Pole as geographic South Pole was not more than a kilometer from what it is by today's GIS and blah. So it's a very fascinating thing, Sanju. You will ask me today how in that 8-foot boat he went 1,000 kilometers, 1,200 kilometers.
Yeah.
His maps were getting wet. It was all about stars and all about sun and the sextant. And
which month did you visit? You all visit?
Jan Feb. So as I told you, the Antarctica summer starts in October. Yeah, you have to go in summer then. So by October. So September is the autumn, roughly the Antarctica autumn. October, the sun starts coming out, and then by March only it stops. So from October to March the sun is out.
Right. So because there is a question about the recording, let me point out to everybody, this recording will be edited and will be available in a week or so on our YouTube channel called the Green Channel. So you can see the recording on that. The next question is by Amruta. How does such abandoned whaling stations affect the biodiversity of that area?
Yeah, so what they've done is now, so as I said, you can't even enter them. They've all now fenced it up. But now there is a trust again in UK called the Heritage Trust. So all of these things are now heritage. So you can't touch them, you can't dismantle them. They've said before 1950 or something, whatever structures were there on Antarctica are now heritage monuments and to be kept as they are. So, but what has happened now is, see, you saw that now for the seals and the penguins, it's all their land now. So it's not, whatever damage was done is done, but but that was another part of the story. These are heritage monuments now.
So there is a question about what you think will happen to the ecosystem of Antarctica in future. I think we can have a separate talk about that completely, because that's a very large area. Sorry, one second. Anahita. Dinesh has said, what is it said? Very inspiring and amazing work.
Hi, Geeta. Dr. Geeta. Where are your patients, Geeta?
Okay. Anahita is asking, when no hunting is allowed, how come the Japanese were there till 2019 for whaling?
So they were the only ones left. What they did is, so they were using bylaws in the sense they were just going off that the circle, which was restricted, the sub-Antarctica, peninsula circle. Well, now it's completely there because of world pressure like Anahita and all others, and people like Anand, Anahitas, and all commoners, and people who have been fighting. did manage then to stop the Japanese now. So what they would do is they would just wait outside that circle to let the whales, they are all poor whales. They knew have to come from Canada or from Australia or from anywhere. They have to come back to South Georgia and that region to eat. So they would just wait outside the legislative line. It's like, breaking the rule, no? But like,
so
but they've stopped now. Yeah.
Ramprasad has asked, can you just tell us exactly what was the kind of research project that you all went for? What was the objective like? Of the
objective was just fun and a dream. So this was not an expedition for research. That's what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
So this was not gathering data. That's why I think this is like you and me as a commoner who can go, but a bit more advanced thing, a bit more private in the sense, not with the 400 people cruise ship, and that's what I mean.
Yeah, actually, they asked us. They had sent a questionnaire to ask us what our interest was, and we had said that we are interested in nature and wildlife and photography. So a lot of the people who came on this particular expedition were
screened also.
Yeah, they were like they had interest in wildlife and nature.
Right.
And some history. But so therefore there was no research happening. So if you have to do research, you can do now. There is a lot you can try. If you are government of India every year wants researchers to go to Antarctica for research, and they have different categories. You can look it up on the web, and if you really want to go and do research.
Right. I think I'll say that please direct those questions to sproutsonline@gmail.com or to us. We'll screen them and send you all the replies for this. So one was that Medha Bhide is asking, how long were you all there? What did you eat and where did you sleep? And I'll combine that with Rahul Palekar's question. He said, were you able to see Aurora Australis there?
Number one, Medhatai, we slept. Obviously, I showed you that was the first picture. That 21 days, so we were straight on the boat in the cabin. Okay, you cannot stay overnight on Antarctica. The new rules of tourism and this now, unless you are part of the expedition, you are part of the a government mission and going to a base. You can, with permission, you can sleep one night out. That's how it is. And there are some protocols, but you can sleep only one day. You can go and sleep on the continent.
In a tent.
Yeah. But coming back, we slept. It's all on the ship, so therefore you have to go on the. You can spend the whole day if you want, but come back in the night to sleep on the boat.
Right.
And we had fantastic food. We had a great chef, and we were fed and fed and fed. But of course,
you hardly ate. I'm sure the same. You threw up. Right. But after a few days, you do get
acclimatized.
So Eddie and Ellen, I think the questions about whether a common person can go to Antarctica. Best season, as you mentioned, is summer. So there are like lots of groups that take, and I'll go fast because I have 30 more messages that I need to go to. So please now let's pause on the messages and we'll quickly handle what we have at the moment. So one good question by Ramprasad is that do penguins show any synchronized behavior?
Synchronized in what way?
In the sense, flamingos have a dance or like migrations, etc. You showed one of them that one jumps, all of them others jump. So do all the penguins have some kind of synchronized behavior? Or
it's not synchronized. You see, in the end, they go off. They are groups, and sometimes you have seen also single penguins. A single penguin was found, in Australia, for example. Why it reached there, nobody knows. Or South Africa, you get a penguin. There are 18. You have South African penguins, but one of the Gentoo was, a submarine has for some reason gone. But what they do, they are there, but they do disperse.
Yeah, but one thing we can say is that many of these, they come back to the same place where they were born to breed.
That is a definite answer one can give.
That's really amazing. Right.
So Nishant has asked that is these Antarctica ice salty? And I will add to that, did you all eat the Antarctica ice?
He did.
Yeah, so I have a picture which I wanted to put or not. I wanted to taste it. So it did taste.
Actually, some of us took the ice back to the bar and we put it in our cocktails,
Yeah, that's nice. Yeah. So I'll take a question which was asked in the FB live by Chinmay, that how does one get such work assignments?
Well, I started from the beginning. This is not a work assignment. You can get work assignments. This is paid. As I said, okay, let me, anybody can go. Eddie or somebody asked the question now today. It's how much money you have. Let's be very clear. Now, let's be commercial in the sense. It's sad, but if you have the money now, if you want to go to the South Pole, because not many can, you can't, in the last 3-4 years, hardly 10 people or 2 expeditions in the last 10 years have gone skiing from the coastline to all the way to South Pole, which is about 1,200 kilometers. There are 4 or 5 places from where you can start it, but then the costs can go up to $200,000 to $300,000 for per person if you have to do that expedition, because then it's a private plane, food has to be dropped. I'm not getting into that, but the other way is there are every year 2 companies now do. If you have $60,000, which is about roughly 40 lakh rupees, you can do a 5-day trip where they take you by plane, 2 planes, and a thing to the South Pole, like the geographic South Pole. If you want to go commercially, you can do it. I can also tell you 1 or 2 companies which do it, but it's like I told you the cost. It's about 40 lakhs plus. As low as, if you want to just see the continent and maybe get down 1 or 2 times, it starts from as low as $8,000 with these big ships that are going, which take 300 people, but then only about half land 1 day, so 2 days you're on board. But they don't really go, they go out to the tip which I showed you, which is the little, they don't even go up to the 66 degrees latitude. They go up to about 63, 64. But you can go, so you can see so a lot of people, when they go, they get very disappointed because they think they've only seen white. After the first day, how much white can you see? So it's also that, 2 days. So
earlier 2 parts of the questions was one, what is the total duration of your presence there, and Aurora Australis?
As I said, we were 1 week before and 1 week later in Falkland. So, and 3 week plus on the boat, and we were about 10 days on the continent. And Aurora Borealis is basically more seen in the Arctic, on the top north. It's not, for some reason it is not really much seen. You can, but it is more, you don't see it because it was also gray. The sky has to be clear. You do see it, but what I'm trying to say, when you ask me the difference between Arctic and Antarctic, from my viewpoint, because I've seen the Aurora Borealis in Arctic much better, more beautiful, and for our reason, it could be just that the weather was bad and we didn't see even one night. I
think Australis probably happens in winters more than in summers.
Yeah, that's okay. That's when the night is dark. So it's more seen, and therefore what the photos are seen are really when it's that pitch dark winter, and more the people on the bases have seen it,
Yeah, right.
But you don't see in the North Arctic. You can see it. It's very easy. That's what I said.
Yeah, I think Norway is so many places.
Everywhere, Norway, North Canada. I've seen it both the places. So.
Right. So my question, this is to Vasudha, that that what were the challenges in terms of what, of course, while working over there, and but for protection of Antarctica, what is it that we need to be concerned about, and how can people, what is the ethic code? Should we go there? Should we not go there? What do you feel?
This question has been actually weighing on our minds ever since we went there and actually saw the situation and understood how fragile the ecosystem is.
Right.
So one thing is that there's been a lot of talk about preventing these large cruises from going there for just tourism purposes to see the scenery.
It's not Disneyland.
Yeah, because also a lot of the ships are dumping their waste in the sea.
Yeah.
And therefore, a lot of pollution is taking place. And as Ganesh has been saying, that the krill, the most important creature on which the whole entire food system and the ecosystem is based, is in danger. So I think if we really want to preserve the Antarctic region, we have to limit the number of people that go there, the number of cruises that go there. And
any carrying capacity study, or what would be the number kind of?
Actually, see, I'm not very sure about the carrying capacity, but they have a limit that only 50 persons can land at one time on any of the landing sites, and that too not more than 2 or 3 a day. So people are trying to do all kinds of things to get permits to go there, So I think very strict monitoring and regulation is.
And they are following, but what happens? No, how it happens? They also, it's not like there are hundreds of ships going.
Yeah.
It's like there are. The time is very short, and each one knows where they're going. So it's a huge continent, and even the peninsula. So what they are doing is that they are giving the ships permits to where they could go, also the route. So the only thing happened for us is, again, good, bad, but because we are the small ship, we could go in, it's so big that they have permission, they could go to, following all the rules to a lot of other places where the big ships don't go or not,
Right. My second question to both of you all is that
just to add, you should, because in the end of the day, we feel that humanity has to see these places. It can't be seen only on documentaries. So let's be very clear. But what we were very thrilled is to see that the kind of biodiversity protocols in Georgia Island, if they are followed, then one can really feel that there is some hope, and the tourism in that way can be done.
So, but a 7-story luxury cruise going into these places, and people throwing the poop and their bilge oil and stuff like that.
So some of these ships are luxury cruises, obviously are not allowed near the South Georgia and all that. So that I'm not getting
like there's a friend of mine who's gone there 7 times already. He works on a cruise liner and he's like, Antarctica, I've been there 7 times. That guy. It's anyway. So the second question that I had was that what is the status of oil? There's so much oil and fossil fuel, and what is because that continent doesn't belong to anybody per se. What is the status like? Is there a moratorium or closure that there will be oil exploration and?
Okay, there is no moratorium on finding oil. Means but there are restrictions how they dig. So now what India? I'll give for India's example. Now India's justification to be in the Antarctica, in the parliament or anywhere, is that we have to be there so that we get a piece of the pie of the oil. Yeah. Okay. So, but for at least now everybody has signed for infinity that they will not do commercial drilling for oil, and hopefully with the kind of climate in the world today, hopefully that will be stuck to. But nobody can stop you. The Russians, Koril, from your side to do a drilling down. All that is allowed. But means your research is all allowed. Okay. And they also have their protocols about how the research station is to be there. People go and monitor them. Obviously, again, it's really sad, but one of the stations which they found was, and then now it's changed, was India station, where they didn't realize that, the crew didn't know that the first 2-3 expeditions didn't know that they didn't have to dump things there outside. But it's not only India, but India was ticked off. So, but now India station is state of the art. It's good, and they can. So it's people learn, and that's what it is. It's good if they can stick to it. But to answer the question, exploration study is happening, but no commercial exploitation will happen. Is the signed agreement as of today? We never know what happens later.
So another one last question. This is absolutely the last question. We are at 7:58. Is that like South Georgia is now getting sort of invaded, and almost so many large icebergs are coming into at it. So what do you think is the situation? Is there a real an imminent threat to Falkland and these places of getting blasted or sort of you'll have an iceberg come and crash into one of these islands, and what is and are they working towards moving them, or the flows, etc.? How is it being monitored?
Well, it's a very interesting question. We can talk a lot, but I think what one saw and what is understanding is that many of them are caught in the currents, so they really don't come out of that current. And it's also the Earth's magnetic field, the way the ice pack, and the way it's moving. And the very simple answer I'll give you is, if they come closer to any of the coast up, they're going to melt. They will not be as big as they are. So because it's not it's few hundred kilometers only that the ice pack is there from the continent. Once it goes off, the South Georgia is sun and bright, it can go up to 20 degrees, 25 degrees. So because South Georgia is already 1200 kilometers from the coast of continent. Anyway, let's not worry. Maybe not in our lifetime.
Kind of distance, that's huge distance. Yeah. So one last, I think since it's already been asked, Ram Prasad has asked this question, that did you see guano deposits either near or in Antarctica?
No, because they are only coming a little bit for nesting, and they're not like large birds like the other seabirds, which the guano which you see in the Pacific Islands, which I've seen in Nauru, or from Fiji when you go down from Solomon, and some of the guano there. This is what is happening here is also that there is snow falling, so it also goes down, and it's so whatever little guano you see is the penguin shit which you saw, the pink thing. It's not really doesn't accumulate over years like what's happened in the Nauru Pacific Islands, where you dig everything and it's gold fertilizer,
So first and foremost, before we close, I'd like to thank Youthful India for hosting this, giving us their Zoom space for hosting this lecture series. They've been doing it for over a year since we've gone online. And Dviti for, being the admin, and Mahesh Samant for giving us this platform. And absolutely Ganesh and Vasudha, you've taken us to a world which is like everyone's dream to see. My team was, and we were excited, super excited to, see this session. And I can promise you, all of you, that we will go on a journey with Ganesh and Vasudha on the Brahmaputra River. We will go to the northern hemisphere. So there might be a dozen more lectures that you will definitely have with us, or maybe we'll record them and have these kind of things. So thank you so much, all of you all. Thank you, Vasudha. Thank you, Ganesh, for this really amazing journey that you have taken us on. And I would suggest that all of you all can write a little bit of what your observations and feelings were, so that other people understand. The link of the online channel will be provided. You can follow us on our YouTube channel, where the talk will be present. But yeah, it is important for us, what they've highlighted, that each of us takes a thought whether my action is going to have an impact on this. And it's not just in reaching Antarctica, but I'm saying even in our lives on a day-to-day basis. Since this is an Earth Day talk, whether the fossil fuels that we use, how many flights we take, or the kind of plastic we burn, or the leaves that we burn, I think every action we need to think whether can I do without this, and how it will have an impact on Antarctica or on the Arctic Circle. So if we get responsible with our climate impact, then maybe these continents are a little safer. The wildlife that we saw will be very safe. So thank you, Ganesh, once again. Thank you, Vasudha. And we'll see you next month. I'm not going to announce the talk today as to what it is, because I want to keep a little bit of mystery. But I hope you all had a great time. And thanks again. See you.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks.
Thank you. And you have their email addresses. It is gpangare@gmail.com and vpangare@gmail.com. Please send only relevant questions. Don't bombard them with largely the commercial questions of how to get to Antarctica, etc. Keep it scientific to the talk that it was today. So thank you.
Bye.
Yeah, see you.